Topic: Refrigeration processing and cold storage, Lecture 5 to 6. Lecture plan: Cold storage room, earliest forms of cooling. Meat is a specific raw material. The characteristic features of meat is that it is a complete source of protein, has a multi-component composition, heterogeneous structure, high biological activity, and can change its characteristics under the influence of external factors. Fresh meat, which lasts approximately 1.5 hours after the slaughter of the animal. The temperature in the depth of the muscle mass of such meat is from plus 25 degrees Celsius. Chilled, obtained after cutting the carcass and brought with the help of refrigeration units to the point where the temperature in the middle of the muscles is from 0 to plus 4 degrees Celsius. Frozen, which is subjected to incomplete freezing. Only the top layer is subject to it. No more than 25% of the total volume of the carcass. Frozen meat products that have undergone freezing, as a result of which the temperature in the thickness of the muscles should not exceed -8 degrees Celsius. A blast freezer is needed for instant cooling or instant freezing of products, for subsequent long-term storage and sale through retail chain stores. Refrigeration chambers are in high demand when it is required to organize the storage of large volumes of food products in the short-term or long-term mode. The term refrigeration means cooling a space, substance or system to lower and/or maintain its temperature below the ambient one, while the removed heat is rejected at a higher temperature. 1, 2. In other words, refrigeration is artificial, human-made, cooling. 3, 4. Energy in the form of heat is removed from a low-temperature reservoir and transferred to a high-temperature reservoir. The work of energy transfer is traditionally driven by mechanical means, but can also be driven by heat, magnetism, electricity, laser, or other means. Refrigeration has many applications, including household refrigerators, industrial freezers, cryogenics, and air conditioning. Heat pumps may use the heat output of the refrigeration process, and also may be designed to be reversible, but are otherwise similar to air conditioning units. Refrigeration has had a large impact on industry, lifestyle, agriculture, and settlement patterns. The idea of preserving food dates back to at least the ancient Roman and Chinese empires. However, mechanical refrigeration technology has rapidly evolved in the last century, from ice harvesting to temperature-controlled rail cars. The introduction of refrigerated rail cars contributed to the westward expansion of the United States, allowing settlement in areas that were not on main transport channels such as rivers, harbors, or valley trails. Settlements were also developing in infertile parts of the country, filled with newly discovered natural resources. These new settlement patterns sparked the building of large cities which are able to thrive in areas that were otherwise thought to be inhospitable, such as Houston, Texas, and Las Vegas, Nevada. In most developed countries, cities are heavily dependent upon refrigeration in supermarkets in order to obtain their food for daily consumption. The increase in food sources has led to a larger concentration of agricultural sales coming from a smaller percentage of farms. Farms today have a much larger output per person in comparison to the late 1800s. This has resulted in new food sources available to entire populations, which has had a large impact on the nutrition of society. Earliest forms of cooling the seasonal harvesting of snow and ice is an ancient practice estimated to have begun earlier than 1000 BC. 5. A Chinese collection of lyrics from this time period known as the Shi Jing describes religious ceremonies for filling and emptying ice cellars. However, little is known about the construction of these ice cellars or what the ice was used for. The next ancient society to record the harvesting of ice may have been the Jews in the Book of Proverbs, which reads, "As the cold of snow in the time of harvest, so is a faithful messenger to them who sent him." Historians have interpreted this to mean that the Jews used ice to cool beverages rather than to preserve food. Other ancient cultures such as the Greeks and the Romans dug large snow pits insulated with grass, chaff, or branches of trees as cold storage. Like the Jews, the Greeks and Romans did not use ice and snow to preserve food, but primarily as a means to cool beverages. The Egyptians also developed methods to cool beverages, but in lieu of using ice to cool water, the Egyptians cooled water by putting boiling water in shallow earthen jars and placing them on the roofs of their houses at night. Slaves would moisten the outside of the jars and the resulting evaporation would cool the water. The ancient people of India used this same concept to produce ice. The Persians stored ice in a pit called a yakchul and may have been the first group of people to use cold storage to preserve food. In the Australian outback, before a reliable electricity supply was available where the weather could be hot and dry, many farmers used a coolgardie safe. This consisted of a room with hessian, burlap, curtains hanging from the ceiling soaked in water. The water would evaporate and thereby cool the hessian curtains and thereby the air circulating in the room. This would allow many perishables such as fruit, butter, and cured meats to be kept that would normally spoil in the heat. Meat packing and trade. Prior to 1882, the South Island of New Zealand had been experimenting with sowing grass and crossbreeding sheep, which immediately gave their farmers economic potential in the exportation of meat. In 1882, the first successful shipment of sheep carcasses was sent from Port Chalmers in Dunedin, New Zealand, to London. By the 1890s, the frozen meat trade became increasingly more profitable in New Zealand, especially in Canterbury, where 50% of exported sheep carcasses came from in 1900. It wasn't long before Canterbury meat was known for the highest quality, creating a demand for New Zealand meat around the world. In order to meet this new demand, the farmers improved their feed so sheep could be ready for the slaughter in only 7 months. This new method of shipping led to an economic boom in New Zealand by the mid-1890s. 39. In the United States, the Meat Inspection Act of 1891 was put in place in the United States because local butchers felt the refrigerated railcar system was unwholesome. 40. When meatpacking began to take off, consumers became nervous about the quality of the meat for consumption. Upton Sinclair's 1906 novel The Jungle brought negative attention to the meatpacking industry by drawing to light unsanitary working conditions and processing of diseased animals. The book caught the attention of President Theodore Roosevelt, and the 1906 Meat Inspection Act was put into place as an amendment to the Meat Inspection Act of 1891. This new act focused on the quality of the meat and environment it is processed in. The ice trade, also known as the frozen water trade, was a 19th century and early 20th century industry, centering on the east coast of the United States and Norway, involving the large-scale harvesting, transport and sale of natural ice, and later the making and sale of artificial ice, for domestic consumption and commercial purposes. Ice was cut from the surface of ponds and streams, then stored in ice houses, before being sent on by ship, barge or railroad to its final destination around the world. Networks of ice wagons were typically used to distribute the product to the final domestic and smaller commercial customers. Thank you for your attention.